Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Now, the two candidates challenging Jeremy Corbyn for the Labour leadership race face their colleagues tomorrow in a parliamentary hustings as nominations for the contest officially open. So how about a sneak preview? I'm going to be quizzing both of them in turn, and then a little later on in the show they will be going head-to-head on the sofa of shame. I'll be talking to Owen Smith in a moment, but first I'm joined by Angela Eagle. Welcome, Angela Eagle.
Sofa hustings sounds
sofa
great.
Hustings, yeah. Tangerine sofa. Now then, you're Prime Minister. One of the first things that might well happen is Nicola Sturgeon comes to you and says, I want a second referendum on Scottish independence. As Prime Minister, you could block that legally, would you?
Look, London voted to remain, and we're in a situation where we're leaving. Liverpool and Merseyside voted to remain. So I think that it's important that we actually get we need to get the terms of leaving right, and we've got to have all-party agreement on that. That's a really important part of where we are now. And let's see where we are when
we're talking about something slightly different, because if Nicola Sturgeon wants there to be a second referendum, thinks she can win it, she has to come at the moment to the Prime Minister and say, can I get permission? My question is, do you stop that happening?
Well, I don't think she will, because I don't think that there's a majority in Scotland at the moment. We have to concentrate, in the interest of the country, on getting the terms which we will negotiate leaving right. And that is the immediate thing we all have to do.
OK. July 2015, the welfare bill comes to the House of Commons and you abstain. Yep. You abstain on a bill which reduces the cap for families and gets rid of child tax benefits. Why do you abstain on that?
We abstained on second reading to see if we could actually get some changes during the passage of the bill through Parliament. We all voted against at third reading. That is a perfectly normal parliamentary process.
Jeremy Corbyn voted against it, and you'd have thought
that's
that in
what he's done all his life.
It would be something that you were against.
We all voted against it at third reading. We were using parliamentary processes to see if we could get some change, and we've been successful in getting change to other welfare bills.
All right. Now, again, you've been under criticism for your Iraq vote, and you've talked about that and explained that, and in a sense that is probably history. But you also voted 3 times against there being an inquiry into the Iraq war. We've now had the Chilcot inquiry, and everyone can start to understand how it happened and learn lessons from that. You were against that. Why?
No, we weren't against,
and I wasn't against it.
I wasn't against the Chilcot report, but there were still troops in Iraq. The issue is that you have an inquiry into something like that when the action is over and your troops aren't in danger. That is why those votes happened. I think we need to learn the lessons of the Chilcot report going forwards to make certain that mistakes that were made over Iraq are never made if we have to contemplate putting our troops into danger again, particularly organising the aftermath properly.
So it was a question of timing. You weren't against an inquiry generally.
Absolutely.
Now, again, there was the vote to go into Libya, and you were in favour of that military action. And when you think about it, it was a smaller event in a way, but we had Iraq as an example, and then we did exactly the same thing in Libya with the same results. We removed a tyrant and we produced chaos. ISIS have moved in. Looking back on that, do you think you wish you had opposed that, as Jeremy Corbyn did at the time?
I don't think Libya was actually the same as Iraq. I think you have to be part of international coalitions to make certain that you have the rule of law in the world. Otherwise,
so no regrets about that? I mean, we went in and we made things a lot worse.
There are no easy answers to these issues, but we are part of an international community via the UN. We're part of the NATO alliance. We have to do what we can to make certain that we help the world live by international rules and human decency, and we ought to keep doing that.
Now, you've had some very, very unpleasant things said about you and some threats and the brick through the window and all the rest of it. Jeremy Corbyn has also had death threats and so forth, but yours have come particularly from the left of the party, or the hard left, and some people think they come from this group Momentum. If you were elected leader, would you make joint membership of the Labour Party and Momentum impossible?
Look, I think it's important and a good thing that many, many more people have joined the party. We now need to engage them much more in our day-to-day work, and we need to listen to our members. But What's been happening recently isn't the kinder, gentler politics that we were promised. We have to stamp it out. It has no place in our political discussions. We've got to keep it comradely, which is why I launched that hashtag, and I'm asking everybody who's involved in the discussions that we're going to be having in the next few months to keep it comradely.
You wouldn't crack down on Momentum as such, as an organisation. There is no evidence that Momentum were behind any of these things said or these
Exactly.
attacks.
I think we need to welcome the involvement of people in politics. That is a good thing.
Some people see Momentum as a kind of backdoor through which Trotskyists, communists, anarcho-syndicalists, you name it, can come into the Labour Party.
Look, I think that there have been some people who were thrown out in the 1990s who've come back into the party, some of whom are behaving in the way we'd expect.
Okay.
We have to ensure that our Labour Party membership isn't compromised by that, but that's not about Momentum.
Finally, and very quickly, you've said that Jeremy Corbyn has lost the support of MPs and therefore should go. If you lose a vote of confidence in your constituency party, will you stand down?
The constituency parties have been suspended for this entire election. There are no official meetings going on.
Angela Eagle, for now, thank you very much indeed. Now, Owen, you have made a lot of your membership in the past of CND. Tomorrow there is a vote in the House of Commons on Trident. Which way will you vote?
I will vote to renew Trident. I'm a multilateralist, Andrew. I believe that the world has actually got more volatile, more insecure over the last few years. I want a world without nuclear weapons altogether, but I don't believe that we hasten that by divesting. About 15 years ago. You know, it's been a long while since I realised that we need to retain it until we can use it as a bargaining chip to get everybody to get rid of their nuclear weapons.
The nuclear deterrent only works, of course, if the Prime Minister of the day is prepared to press the button and annihilate possibly millions of people. As Prime Minister, would you press the button under certain circumstances?
You've got to be prepared to say yes to that, Andrew. That's absolutely right. And it was a mistake of Jeremy.
Corbyn says
it was a mistake of Jeremy to say that. And I understand why, of course, it's a terrible thought for anyone.
He has a principled objection to nuclear weapons. You don't.
No, that's not true. I don't want nuclear weapons. I'm a multilateralist.
You're going to vote for the renewal of Trident.
I am.
So, but you don't want the renewal of nuclear weapons. I don't understand.
I want all nuclear weapons in our country and across the world to be got rid of. I don't think that we make that more likely by unilaterally disarming ourselves. I don't think we will succeed in encouraging other countries to do likewise. And indeed, I think the world has got more volatile. So we've got to stick with what we've got. We've got to renew it if that's the advice of the security services. And it's awful that we've got to do that, but I'm afraid it's true.
Now, you say in today's papers that you led the crusade against tax credits and the battle against the welfare bill. But when it came to the welfare bill, again, you abstained. Why?
Well, it was a mistake, and I regret it. And I argued in Shadow Cabinet, as Angela and others can testify, that we oughtn't to be abstaining on it. And I was part of Andy Burnham's campaign telling Andy that he ought to be resigning on the issue. The truth is, it was a mistake. I'm pleased that when I then became DWP Shadow Secretary, I did lead the campaign. I did change our position. We opposed the welfare bill outright. We opposed it line by line. I led the campaign against tax credits, and we succeeded in getting those tax credits reversals overturned, as we succeeded under my leadership in getting the PIP cuts to disabled people overturned. I'm very, very proud of that, Andrew.
Now, you say that you're a man of the left in Labour Party terms. You're a left-wing candidate. Would you raise taxes on the people at the top of society, the richest, in order to do the things that the people at the bottom of society desperately need doing?
I think we need to completely overhaul our tax system. I think one of the things...
Tell me about that, then.
So yes, I think the reality is one of the things that we've been far too timid about in the Labour Party for a long time is our taxation system. It isn't progressive. People at the lower end of the income spectrum...
higher income tax for the rich.
Well, I think certainly I'd go back to a 50p rate tomorrow because I think that is absolutely the right thing to do. But there are other elements of taxation. Why on earth are capital gains being taxed at 20% when the highest rates of income tax are at 45%? That seems to me to be completely anomalous. It doesn't seem to be progressive. It's not Labour, I think, for us to have that sort of a tax system. I'd want to get into that, and the benefit system. We should be thinking about this thing far more holistically and be much more radical about it.
Angela Eagle was talking about Article 50 and all of that. If you became Labour leader and Article 50 had not been triggered by the time of the next election, both possible things, would you go into that election saying, do you know what, as the Labour Party, we will not trigger Article 50? In other words, we will not leave the EU. That would open the Labour Party out to the 16 million people who voted to remain, and could be a hugely popular thing, but it would be a danger for you too.
Well, I'd like to be able to say that, because I'm a proud European, and I think we are much better off at the heart of Europe. But I think it will test.
It's not quite the same as saying it.
But let me finish. I think it will depend on what we've seen as being the outcome of these Brexit negotiations. In my view, people voted with good faith on either side of that. But let me finish, if I may. But I don't think many people in this country knew precisely what the outturn was going to be. We've now got a period over the next 18 months to look at it, to determine it's whether what we want.
Forgive
we
me,
can trust
I'm
the
asking you
British
something
people
slightly
again.
I'm asking you something slightly different, because we only get the outcome of the negotiations after we have triggered Article 50. Now, if Article 50 is delayed until after a general election, if Theresa May looks at the chaos in the Labour Party and says, do you know what, I'm going to go for a general election, and Owen Smith is the leader of the Labour Party, you could go into that election saying, do you know what, if you elect me, I will not trigger Article 50, and therefore there won't be those negotiations and we won't leave the EU.
Well, I think that'll be very tempting for the Labour Party, because we are a party that believes in being at the heart of Europe. But I say again...
I'm tempted to ask you a little bit further. It's very tempting. Would you do it?
Well, I don't think it's a binary choice. And I think the reality...
No, it isn't.
No, it isn't, because the reality is we don't know what those terms are going to look like. Now, if it's next month, then I think it'll be very difficult for the Labour Party.
But there won't be
after
terms
people
at that
have
stage.
voted.
I mean,
well, that's my point. Yeah. We need to come to some idea of what we're actually getting. I wouldn't go out and buy a car without checking it at an engine. So I think we need to check exactly what we're going to see.
OK, so Labour under you would go into those negotiations, as the Tories are now, after an election. You wouldn't try and do anything dramatic to reverse the outcome of the referendum?
No, I think we need to negotiate right now. I don't think we should accept that we're on a definite path out. I think we need to make sure that people are satisfied with that. We trusted people rightly to take the decision. We can trust them again in 18 months' time to check whether it's absolutely what they wanted.
All right. Owen Smith, Angela Eagle, thanks to both of you. We will see you again shortly later on in the programme. Marr's Labour Hustings. Angela Eagle and Owen Smith are back with me together. Angela Eagle, can you tell Owen why you would be a better leader than he would be?
Well, I think I'm from northern working class stock. My mum was a seamstress who didn't get the chance to go to university. I did, because of Labour governments, and that's why my whole political mission is to get working class kids the right opportunities to shine, and I think that's what I'm in politics for. Whenever I've been asked to stand up and step up to the plate, I have. I wiped the floor with George Osborne at Prime Minister's Questions. I'm an experienced government minister as well as experience in opposition.
Right.
So I'm a working class woman, and that's what we need at the moment from the north.
Owen, attentive viewers will have noticed that you are not a working class woman, but apart from that, why is she wrong?
That's definitely true.
Why is she wrong?
She's not wrong. Angela would make a great leader of the Labour Party. She's already been for a long time a leader and a pioneer in our party, and if Angela were the leader, I would serve you with great humility and respect. You'd be a good leader of this party. I think I could also be a good leader of this party. I think we are people who share socialist views. I think maybe it's time to go for a new generation of Labour leaders, men and women. I think perhaps in the past we've been a bit too timid around some of the ideas that we got in this country. Personally, I'm going to argue today that austerity is right, but we need a plan for prosperity, and that means specifics, £200 billion investment programme, big ideas for the big challenges we face.
We agree on anti-austerity.
I can do that.
We agree on anti-austerity.
I agree on anti-austerity.
I think it's time for a woman, though.
OK. And you rather ungallantly say, but you're too old. Anyway, you put it slightly nicer
quite
than
said that.
You didn't
I
quite
think I
say
quite
that.
said
That's where
that.
you were going.
Maybe
That's where you
it's
were
a time
going.
for experience.
All right, OK. Now, do you both agree also that between you, one of you should be standing against Jeremy Corbyn, not both? You have to decide between you which of you it is.
Well, I think I'm preparing for the hustings tomorrow, for the PLP hustings, and I'm going to concentrate on putting ideas forwards and see what happens. I think it's too early to talk about that.
I think one of us standing would be better, is the honest answer, but I think the PLP has got to be a grown-up organisation and try and come to a decision in the next couple of days as to who it is.
So you now have this PLP hustings, and you're in front of the Labour MPs, and there's no kind of vote. How do you decide between the two of you who is the more popular among Labour MPs? How do you resolve this question? Which of you goes forward?
Well, we've got a nominations process. I think it's very clear. We've got Hustings tomorrow.
So whoever gets the
Angela
more
says.
nominations
Well,
should
that's
get
one
it.
way in which we could do it. Or we could make an agreement between ourselves. But my view is whoever is the person who commands the largest degree of support in the PLP is the unity candidate, and that's the person who should go forward and take Jeremy on.
I think we have to have the person that's most likely to beat Jeremy Corbyn, and I think that's me.
Right, so you're not standing aside under any circumstances. Granita restaurant is still open, you know.
We're not going to do, we're not going to do a deal here on your sofa, beautiful though it is.
If Jeremy Corbyn does win this, partly because the two of you haven't decided which of you is going to stand, if he does win it, would you each serve in his shadow cabinet, or are we going back to the same situation we're in now?
Jeremy's lost the confidence of the parliamentary party, and we've seen from some of the polls that he's not connecting either with Labour voters, and that's the argument we have to have in the country. We may have an early general election, so let's do the leadership election and let's see what happens.
But people watching do need to know that if they choose Jeremy Corbyn again as their leader, whether or not that there's going to be still a kind of abstention by the shadow cabinet, no one's going to serve and all that kind of stuff.
Look, you know, I'm not leaving the Labour Party, not for Jeremy Corbyn or anybody else. I've always felt it's the Labour Party or nothing for me. But I will serve and work with Jeremy if he wins, because always we need to serve Labour.
All right. OK, thank you both very much indeed.